Welcome to Zoe International's Giving Tuesday Facebook Live event. We're so excited you're joining us today as we launch Zoe's boldest initiative yet, the 10 to End campaign. My name is Esther Yu, and I'm the Western Regional Director here at Zoe International. And I've been with the organization for 13 years, 5 years out in Thailand, and 8 years here in LA County. And we're excited to have a special program for you today. We're going to have many partners and supporters, and even one of the youth that Zoe served joining us on the call today. So hopefully you can stay with us for this hour. So the movement that we're trying to start, the 10 to End campaign, this is a movement fueled by hope, faith, and a vision to end child trafficking in our lifetime. Human trafficking remains one of the greatest human rights crises of this generation and this time, but together we can stand against it. For just $10 a month, you can join thousands of others who are making a difference by preventing trafficking, rescuing victims, and restoring survivors. During today's live event, you'll hear from incredible partners, donors, and as I mentioned, a former youth that Zoe served about why this mission is so important. You'll also learn how you can take part in this life-changing work. Our goal for 2025 is ambitious. We are trying to mobilize 10,000 people in 2025 in this fight to help us end child trafficking and raise $2 million in order to sustain our programs. So far, 884 supporters have already said yes to joining this movement. And together with your help and God's guidance, we believe we can end child trafficking. Just as transatlantic slavery was abolished generations ago, we believe that we can make history together. So to start, we have a special guest, Pastor Dan Broyles, who is the care pastor at Valencia Hills Community Church, and he is the co-founder of the Santa Clarita Valley Human Trafficking Task Force. And we've invited him to join us today on this call to share more about how he is involved in helping to end child trafficking and how we partner together with Zoe International. So Pastor Dan, thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome on this call. And if you would just be able to introduce yourself and tell the viewers a little bit about yourself.
Great, great. And thanks, Esther, and thanks, Zoe. I think I'm just so thrilled with what you're doing today and what you do. And so, yeah, I've been a pastor for many years, but prior to that, I was a social worker with Department of Social Services and Child Abuse Investigations. And about 10 years ago, a friend of mine and I actually helped kind of start a group in Santa Clarita, the Santa Clarita Valley Trafficking Task Force, just to bring awareness, education to the community. And Esther and the team at Zoe has been a huge part of that group, and just love working with what you do. And it's been great to educate and provide resources for those in the community.
Thank you so much. And you are such an inspiration and an amazing advocate in this movement to end child trafficking. For you personally, and even for your church and the task force, why is it so important for you to get involved in this?
Well, I think part of it starts with just such on a human level that every minor, every child is vulnerable, and why would we not want to care for vulnerable individuals? No child, no youth ever goes and wants to be trafficked. I mean, it's awful, no matter where you're coming from, the atrocities that happen, and just the humanness of let's care. These are people's children. These are sisters and brothers and nieces and nephews, grandchildren, and why would we not want to stand up and care for them and provide resources and support? And also, my faith is huge in this whole issue of wanting to really care and live out my beliefs in God and what Christ stood for, of loving those that are often invisible in our culture. And so it's a human thing, it's a faith thing, it's almost like, why would it be? I would feel so convicted if I did nothing.
Mhm.
To actually do nothing and be passive about such atrocities, to me, is almost unacceptable, in my opinion.
Mhm. How do you feel? I know we've partnered together for many years. How do you feel that Zoe has been most helpful in the areas that you have seen in this movement?
Actually, when I think of you, Esther, personally, when I think of the Zoe team, I actually think of what I would say experts in the field of human trafficking. Like, there's no one that I go to more that if like I need advice on how to handle this or how to think about this, a resource for this, that Zoe's on the front lines of making a difference. And what I also love about Zoe is there's such great community partners. There's humility with the leadership and working with government agencies, working with schools, working with nonprofits, churches. And I love their willingness to kind of step across the aisle and go, how do we work together for the betterment of children, to protect kids and help children in need? So I just love their mindset of just whatever it takes, how we can help together. I mean, they've done a great job. They've made such a difference with our small group, the task force, and just Santa Clarita. I know it's just one tiny sliver of what they do, but they're so great in being a community partner and not just isolating. Some nonprofits do that, but Zoe's been wonderful in the collaboration.
Thank you so much. What would be your message to the community? So many people hear about it, they want to do something.
Right.
What would you tell the community in terms of something that they can do to help?
Yeah, I think the average person gets overwhelmed by the issue in general. They don't even know where to start. They don't even know what to do. It seems so atrocious. It seems so overwhelming, and like it ends up paralyzing sometimes individuals. And I always think sometimes the hardest step is the first step. So whether it's the campaign to give a little bit to Zoe today would be great. To say a prayer for the children for Zoe. To maybe go on Zoe's website and just be informed, educate yourself. So I always think I do a lot of counseling in my role as a pastor. Sometimes I just want to help people with the very first step. So if you're like, I'm new to this is a new venture to me, and I care, but where do I start? It could be, all right, $10. I can do $10, or I can pray, I can do something. And so taking that first step makes a difference. And if thousands of people take a first step, it's amazing what can happen. It's amazing what can happen with when people all across the country, across the world, take one small step for the greater good.
Hmm. And especially being part of the faith community, how do you see the faith community, churches, believers? Um, how can they help in this movement to
Yeah,
end child trafficking? And why is it important for the faith community to get involved?
yeah, absolutely. As a pastor, I actually think it's, this is not an optional issue. This is an essential issue. I mean, the Bible says so much about justice. It says so much about caring for vulnerable individuals. It it's almost like if you don't, as a church, there's like this huge blind spot going on. And I would say it could be simply like, what about talking to your youth group about trafficking? Whether it's your staff being equipped to know the signs, because it's going on in communities across our country, across the world. And just because we don't see it initially doesn't mean it's not happening. And so one of the things I've seen is, I think it breaks God's heart sometimes if this ministry is seen as optional. This is not something that's optional, but absolutely essential to live out your faith. And so I hope every church can take one small step, whether it's supporting Zoe, saying a prayer, someone sharing in a service, whatever it is, just to make a difference in this area.
That's so critical and such an important word that you're sharing there. With both your church and the task force, if you could share a little bit more about the activities that the task force is involved in, how people can get involved if they're local to Santa Clarita, and then also your church in terms of what are some ideas, even in the ways that your church even helps in prevention. Just I know
Yeah.
your church offers so many amazing classes that I share with people in my life and in my circles, because you offer so many resources for the community to be healthy. And that's part of the problem is broken families,
Hmm.
individuals that
Hmm.
are recovering from trauma and abuse.
Hmm.
But if you could share a little bit more about the task force and your church, and some of the activities that
Sure.
are offered and involved in this.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, the task force has been a great group of people. It's not a separate nonprofit of just people who care. We all can agree on this issue that we need to address human trafficking, and we put on a conference every year at our local College of the Canyons. They've been a great partner with us, and hundreds of people come to be informed, educated. An individual will tell their story. Expert will share a panel. So it's really about education. And like we had it, do it every September. And last September, we probably had 15, 20 nonprofits also with tables. People get to know what's like people like Zoe or other great nonprofits are doing out there. And then we also go about trying to provide more education for the community. And so our next project, for instance, for the task force is going to be connecting with local urgent cares in our area to talk about what like nurses and the medical community, what can they know and be more informed about when maybe they come across a victim or come across someone who's at risk for being trafficked. And so medical professionals are the top professional that will often come in contact with someone who's been trafficked. So we're doing some prevention work that way of connecting. We've connected actually with hotel owners and managers. We put up posters at our local bars and restrooms and all sorts of things. So that's been part of the task force. And then our church, a couple things we do that's been really, I think, helpful. We actually provide groups for like women with domestic violence. I know that's a huge issue. We're actually restarting groups for women with sexual abuse. That's a huge issue. Often women, it feels like almost always, I know there's exceptions, it feels like almost every woman I've talked to who's been trafficked has sexual abuse as part of her story, which is it's like double the trauma that has gone on. So these are like some things we do. And then also we provide case management for families with DCFS that have seen a drop in the cases in our local area of kids going into the system at our local social service office. So it's been great to partner with private, with public, just for the greater good of helping protect children.
Mm-hmm. And you are so well connected in the community and known by so many, and are so great at even connecting Zoe to provide trainings for law enforcement or schools or social workers in the community. What would you say to the community, especially Santa Clarita is known to be a safe community? How are individuals in communities like that even at risk, or some of the vulnerabilities that that you're aware of in terms of how this can happen to children and families, and even in suburban communities?
Yeah, there's a huge assumption that this only happens in maybe some of the more difficult parts of the inner city or places like Southeast Asia. But this is something, because of technology and social media and these 12, 13, 14-year-olds all having their iPhones, there's a risk involved with all these individuals. So I really believe that every school district, every hospital, any mental health agency, all of them needs to have their staff to be equipped and trained and to see the signs and then what to do once they know the signs. And so this is where anybody can get involved and go, at your local agency that you might be connected with, your school district, hey, I wonder if the staff here has been trained in this area. Can Zoe come and do a training for the teachers or the school counselors? Because this is not something that happens in just some very, the most difficult parts of maybe some really kind of rough parts of the neighborhood, kind of per se. This is across everywhere. This is everywhere you go. There needs to be equipping and training. And Zoe's done such a great job stepping in and training hundreds and thousands of people across our community, which is really doing the prevention work that's needed.
Thank you so much, Pastor Dan. You are such, as I mentioned, an inspiration, and we're so thankful for individuals like you. And you really exemplify the power of what one individual can do in the ways that you connect the community and educate so many people about the dangers of trafficking, but also resources to help. And so we just thank you for your collaboration and all that you do, and just for joining us today.
Well, great. And thanks. And for everybody out there, I know there's a lot of suspicion sometimes about where to give. And I would say I've known Zoe for 10, 15 years now, and they are a trusted organization. I trust them on a personal level. And so I know sometimes people are like, I don't know who I can trust. I would say Zoe's a trusted organization that you really is doing great, great work, both on the prevention and then even on the aftercare. So just to everybody out there, I hope you can trust Zoe. I hope this leads to greater good for children in need.
Thank you so much, Pastor Dan.
All right.
So I hope you were inspired just by what Pastor Dan shared and what one person can do and the ways that he creates opportunities for so many people to get involved in this movement. And we're so thankful for to him and to all those connected to him and his church and the ways that they collaborate with us. And history teaches us that movements led by even a small percentage of the population can create unstoppable change. By uniting as 10,000 monthly partners, just giving $10 a month, we can begin to be a part of a massive movement to end child trafficking in our generation. We hope to empower an army of people with weapons and tools that will effectively end this problem. And we can do this together. And we are offering this as a way for individuals who want to get involved but don't know what to do. This is a small step in just joining us in this movement, just giving $10 a month, visiting endchildtrafficking.org, and you can see more information about that. So our next special guest, I'm so excited to introduce, is Josh Rivas. He is the Director of Public Awareness at Soroptimist for the Greater Santa Clarita Valley. And we're so thankful for their partnership. For so many years, we've been partnering with them and just able to educate those individuals who are part of that organization, as well as receive funding for critical services that we're doing here in this area. And Josh, personally, I have been so inspired just to see the ways that he's always mobilizing his networks and his community to raise awareness, raise funding for all the things that Zoe does, but also just to empower women and girls in the community. And so we welcome Josh today. He's also a local business owner as well. Josh, thank you so much for taking time to join our call today. If you
thanks for having me.
Just share a little bit more about yourself and you and Soroptimist are amazing advocates raising awareness. Why are you personally so passionate about this cause?
It's always been something near and dear to my heart. I started in the nonprofit volunteering I was asked to be on a panel for the Hollywood Homeless Youth Partnership many years ago, and they just wanted different business owners. And the amount of homeless youth that comes to that and is involved in it was overwhelming. And then I started mentoring one-on-one, and when people come from somewhere else to LA, within 24 hours they'll be approached by someone who wants to traffic them or someone who wants to sell drugs to them. And it just really impacted me. So I really kind of focused my attention on the anti-trafficking movement. And then I got involved with Soroptimist because I want to help work with all the causes, and Soroptimist touches so many different organizations as well as doing their own work with mentoring young women and girls and empowering them. So it kind of is one umbrella that covers everything that I'm passionate about.
And we love Soroptimist's mission to empower women and girls. How do you feel that aligns with Zoe's mission to end child trafficking? We love how we're on prevention, rescue, and restoration, but the empowerment piece is so critical for sustainability outside of the trauma and the abuse that our survivors have suffered. How do you feel like the missions align and work together?
I think they're very similar, and we help a lot with the mentoring, and even when we go into the high schools, and if we see something where we'll report it, and or if we hear about something, and we can be there to help with the mentoring, and then also with education. We have our Live Your Dream Award for a woman who is head of household that's furthering her education. And we basically give her a check that she can use for anything. And there's so many resources. And then I'm in the club, the Soroptimist group that I'm in is just full of successful, powerful, strong women that are excited to pass that on to the younger generation and share what they've been through as well.
Hmm. You mentioned the grant that you give to an individual. What are some of the other ways that Soroptimist partners with organizations like Zoe and some of the events and activities and other things that Soroptimist does?
Yeah, so we have our two huge events. We just had our fashion show, and we do our wine affair. And usually we'll focus kind of on one cause for that, but then we also hand out checks to a dozen or more other nonprofits. And so we're able to, we don't have overhead like a different type of organization. We do give to our, it's a global organization. So we do give our yearly dues to support the global aspect of it, but we raise money for our programs, and then we love being able to give checks. And I was like, when we gave the check to Zoe at the fashion show, I'm like, let's get a giant check. It'll be so much more fun. So,
It's amazing. I mean, the events you guys put on, and I know a lot of times you've chaired and co-chaired those events. They're amazing local events, and those are so many opportunities you give the community to just take part in helping to be part of these movements to empower women and girls and end child trafficking. How has your involvement with Zoe personally impacted your life?
oh, I mean, it's so inspiring. I think the first, when I first started looking for an organization to get involved with this, I was working in Hollywood with the homeless youth, and someone from the crisis pregnancy center called me and asked me if I knew anyone that spoke. I forgot what language it was, but East South Asian language, and I'm like, oh, Cambodian, and I'm like, oh, I actually know a Cambodian church. A friend of mine works there, and he brought his wife who's fluent because they had just questions about this girl, and it turns out that she was being trafficked, and through that they were able to expose a whole human trafficking ring, and being like a small part of that, just making the connection really inspired me. And then I started researching different organizations, and Zoe kept coming up, and just being in the nonprofit world for so long, like I really researched, like, is this a legit organization? Where does their money go? What percentage of their money goes to the cause? And I'm like, wow, this is good. Where did it start? I'm like, oh my gosh, you're 2 blocks away from my salon. Like, it's local. So I love the story of how it started, and I'm just drawn to it, and I love. I mean, I heard at your holiday event the one of your survivors speak, and she was so inspiring, and I was just choked up the whole time, like how far she's come and how amazing she's doing, and it's just so inspiring, and that we can make a little difference. Like, I mean, like, we can't save everybody in the world, but why wouldn't we save who we can?
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned her because she will be joining this call as well. And so those who weren't able to join the holiday event, she'll be able to join this call at the end of the call to just share a little bit about herself and her story. And then finally, you're a community member, a business owner, and people listening on this call, they're thinking, man, I want to get involved, I want to help. And one way is to join our campaign to give $10 a month. But what would be your message to the community in terms of if they feel like, what can I do? There's not really much I can do. What would be your message to the community if their heart's being tugged on a little bit and wanting to get involved? What would you tell them?
Well, the human trafficking is such a huge issue, and it seems like one person, like, what can I do? I'm just one person. But it takes a lot of those one people to make such a huge global impact. And I know, gosh, I bought my first salon in 2007, right before the economy crashed. And it was so great to own a business, and I was doing really well, and I was writing big checks to everyone. And when the economy crashed, I'm like, I can't do that. What can I do? And there's so many ways to volunteer if you don't have $10. There's so many things you can do to be a part of it. And then you hear the stories like they will later, and it's like, oh, that was all worth it. All I did was donate a dessert to, it could be that small, or it could get bigger. And there's so many ways to get involved. I know there's volunteer opportunities at Zoe. Sir Optimus is another way that people can get really involved on a larger scale. But I feel like when you look at the big picture, people don't realize that it's all these small parts that put that big picture together.
Thank you so much, Josh, for joining this call and just for everything that you do just to spread the word. And your passion is infectious. We're so grateful to partner alongside you and Sir Optimus. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
So, according to research by political scientist Erica Chenoweth, history shows that when 3.5% of a population is actively engaged in a movement, social change becomes nearly inevitable, underscoring the power of collective action. And human trafficking, it's modern day slavery, and every child deserves freedom, hope, and safety. So, your $10 a month might seem small, but it makes a massive impact when we all come together. If we could get 10,000 people to give just $10 a month, we really can sustain our programs in prevention, in rescue, and restoration. And so I'm excited to invite our next special guest, Ms. LaTora Saxton. She and her husband are the founders of Foundation Christian Ministries, which is a church in Antelope Valley, and who has really been in the trenches with us, allowing our youth to attend their activities, mentoring, supporting us in crises. And so I just want to welcome LaTora Saxton today. Thank you so much, LaTora, for joining this call. I'm always so blessed just having a text or a phone conversation with you. I know sometimes we just need to get on the phone and chat and catch up and just talk about what we're experiencing in the hardship, but also the joys. And you're one of those people and churches that have really stood by us and have been willing to help. We need help with one of our youth. As a community member, as a church, are you able to assist us? You guys have come through in so many ways, and so I just welcome you today and just want to thank you for joining us and all that you do.
Awesome. So glad to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation. It really is an honor and a pleasure. And ditto right back at you. Love the work that you do. It always is a joy. Every time we jump on the phone, it's just like, yes, there is still hope and there's people in the churches with me. But I love what what Zoe represents and the leadership. That's really what impresses me kind of most about an organization like Zoe is the overwhelming sense of integral and authentic leadership. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, LaTora. And if you can just share about how your family, your church, and even the way that your church has gotten involved with the Antelope Valley Human Trafficking Task Force as well. If you could just share how you all are involved in this movement to help us end trafficking.
Absolutely. So we got involved, honestly, just as a sort of a cheerleader. We were approached by a great friend and who also is involved with Zoe, Dr. Jason Plunkett, happens to be a good friend of ours. And so he said, hey, keep this ministry and this movement in prayer. We're like, okay, not really knowing what that meant. And so, but once we started learning, oh, this isn't just a issue that's across the country, but it's right here locally in our backyards. And so the more we learned about it, we were like, okay, how do we get actively involved? And so from there, it's just been gone from just being a cheerleader and then being a prayer partner and then being an active person and team and community that is mobilizing people to be an agent of change to help support this movement. And so, as a church body, our whole church is now on board, whereas it was just a thought of like, okay, yeah, we'll support an organization, but it is so beautiful to be a part and actually see. Sometimes we're involved in things and we support certain organizations, and you never know where your services or your resources or your manpower is actually being executed. And it's really awesome to see the actual physical manifestation of the work that is being done and the things that we're just a small, drop in the bucket to the contribution that Zoe does. But it's just awesome to see, like, wow, we can actually see the change that we want to see.
I love that. And I love your family because you are so well connected to the community. And maybe you can share a little bit about some of the things your church does in the community, just to give inspiration to other churches out there that want to get more involved in the community. If you can share a bit about, I know, Corey attends like law enforcement community meetings and things like that. What are ways that the church can get involved to stay connected to the community?
Well, I love that, my husband, Pastor Corey Saxon, he is an incredible leader, and I love that he can actually pastor me. So it's cool to be in ministry with someone that just doesn't talk about it from the stage, but actually is doing something outside the church walls. And so one of his passions is what is the what does the community need right now, right? And if there's a problem in the community, then the church should be at the forefront of making a change for those problems. And so we just decided as a family, we're tightly knitted as a family, and it's always interesting. Like when people meet us, they like, oh, that person's in your family or that person's in your family, but it's the community becomes our family. So we're not blood related, but we just love our mantra at our church is love God, love people.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes when you hear of the magnitude of such a challenging, issue, you wonder, like, what is it? What are we even going to do? And honestly, love just goes a long way. And so things that like we've been able to do is just be a bridge. Obviously, we're Black and brown people. Our church is located on the east side of Palmdale, and so oftentimes there are barriers that can hinder organizations like larger organizations from being able to get involved, because there's trust issues and there's challenges around, does this organization really care about us and things like that. So we decided, how can we be the bridge? How can we help people to understand, like, this is safe, these are trusted partners? And so in a lot of ways, we just said, how do we get out in the streets? And so my husband, Pastor Corey, has been involved in everything from law enforcement, what you call it, clergy meetings. Like we are part of a DMH clergy meeting that happens every month. And we're a part of, everything from foster youth and things like that. It's just awesome to see, like, when we get into those spaces and we're just wondering, like, well, we're just pastors or we're just members of a church. And then you realize, like, oh no, you're much more powerful. Your voice carries weight in this community. And then also just being in a listening ear. I don't know how to listen to a problem and not help it. So, and that's really much like what we've attracted at our church. So there are a bunch of radical people that are like, okay, if we see and hear a problem, how do we like be the agents of change that we want to see? And so getting involved from a community-based aspect and then bringing that into the church really does, in my opinion, require a total mindset shift of like who the church traditionally has been and now who the church can be. And so our church really is kind of unconventional, and for honestly to shift the culture in the beginning when we first started out in ministry, there were a lot of folks that were like, well, if we give all of our stuff out there, we're not going to have stuff for our members in here. And we're like, yeah, that's the gospel. Go out and help other people. And so what we found is, because we're able to take that sort of mindset of going out and helping others, we actually have more. God has blessed us with more, and provision has come in, and resources have came in, and community partners have come through the door that we never expected. And so I would say to any local church that's wondering, like, and we are a small church, we're not a huge church. We don't got a ton of money. I said that in Ebonics. We ain't got a ton of money. We absolutely don't. We just got a lot of love, and we got really people. And a $25 gift card goes a long way. A $10 gift card goes a long way. A Uber gift card goes a long way. For a lot of the women and young youth that we've encountered, they have so many needs. And you're like, well, where do we start? Sometimes it's like one young lady just recently needed a bus pass, something as small as that. And so churches sometimes we're like, how do we write a big check? And it's like, no, what if you could just provide a bus pass? a meal for a family, a gift certificate, a gas card, or dropping off someone, or bringing awareness into your church just about knowing the signs and knowing what to look for. So those are some of the ways that we've been trying to get it. And we're not experts, but some of the stuff we work with.
I feel like what's really important and something special about you and your church is you really have committed, whether I don't know if it was your intention or not, but really have committed to come alongside whatever the need. And how do you, even as a small church, how do you empower or train or teach your congregation how to step into this very difficult space, probably one of the most difficult, challenging, horrible, problems, because trafficking involves almost every, crime and abuse and trauma that's out there. And so, how do you teach and shepherd your congregation and your people to be willing to accept and have the youth that we serve even come alongside you, sometimes causing a ruckus, in the midst of your meetings? But what do you do to empower your church people to be able to say yes to allowing us to come in? And it's not for every church. Some churches don't have the capacity, and maybe some churches they're going to give money because they can, but maybe they're not set up to be a safe place necessarily for those who are in the throes of crises and trauma. But your church has stepped into that space. And what do you guys do as a church to empower your people?
Oh, great question. I wish I had like a secret sauce answer, but honestly, I think it's really okay. So we are a church, and we really believe God. We believe His word, and we believe 100% that we should help people. We should serve our community, right? And so, with that, as a leadership, we really had to empower the leadership to really own who we are, what we believe. And we really believe that, this is a huge issue and a problem. And what I love about our best example is Jesus. And every time that it was miracles that took place in the Bible, there were moments where he would just get moved with compassion. And so I think that's the thing that's missing is empathy and compassion. Sorry, I got folks in my office. uh, but move with compassion, move with empathy, and move by just hearing someone's story and really sitting in a seat of, this could be me, this could be my child, this could be my brother, my sister, my mom. And honestly, some of the conversations that I have with other churches is and how we, and even with our church, starting with our church, was checking your privilege at the door. And so sometimes we talk about privilege, and we talk about it from a Black and brown or ethnicity type of a space. But I come from a household. I'm the oldest of 5 kids. I've never not felt uncovered or unsheltered. I've never gone without a meal. I've never not had. I have incredible parents, and so sometimes we look at some of these young folks, and I've heard amongst the conversation, even in our church, like, why she act like that? That little girl should be grateful. They live in this beautiful home and acted. They have da 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 going on. But at the end of the day, I'm like, well, you don't know what that feels like because you don't sit in her seat or their seat. And so when we, as a church, begin to stoop and get low, and low meaning like kneeling and saying, God, help me to see things the way that you see them. Help me to see these young people and these folks that have had these encounters the way that you see them. Then that would be that's all the change that we need to see. And from that space, I kid you not, it's almost like, and I believe it's Holy Spirit, but it's like there's this supernatural power that comes up in us, and we go, okay, because I care, and because this change needs to happen. There's literally resources that like start opening up. We start thinking outside of the box. We start thinking, okay, what is something that's tangible that we can actually do? So for any small church that's out there that's going like, how do I get my members involved? How do we mobilize for change? I would say start with your leadership first. really start checking our own hearts. I thought that before I got involved with Zoe, I've always been known as a nice person and an empathetic person and a patient person. And then I got involved with Zoe, and I was like, well, I gotta get better because, in all honesty, when you're working with, especially some of the youth, you're like, okay, I really want to fight you right now, but you can't. You have to. We're waging war against principalities that we don't even understand all the time, and so
Mm,
it is so powerful to be able to one, be prayed up. So that would be my first suggestion for any church that's going, what do I do? Hey, put on the full armor of God and stay prayed up. Number two, get out there and just whatever those things are that you could say, hey, we have capacity to do at least this, do
mhm.
that, and do it in excellence. And then as you have consistency, you'll start to see, oh, well, we can do more. We can do more. And before you know it, and like you just said, it's not for everybody, but everybody can do something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you so much, Latora, for joining today and just staying in the fight with us. We appreciate you and your church so much.
Absolutely. We love y'all. And again, for anyone that's looking for a great place to donate or give during this Giving Tuesday, listen, there's a ton of organizations that you can give to. This is something that's so meaningful. And again, it is right here in our backyard. And what they do is, again, so integral. And you will see the change in your dollars that are spent. Amen. God
Mm.
bless you.
Thank you so much. Next, we have an amazing guest coming on. It's Adela Estrada. She works with the Department of Children and Family Services in Los Angeles County. She is a program administrator for the DREAM program. And so we'll hear about what that is here in LA County. Adela, thank you so much for joining. I know you're in the midst of an all-day conference. We're at that one too.
Cool.
Thank you
Awesome.
for joining. If you could share with us about how you got involved in this program, the DREAM program that serves, youth and families impacted by trafficking and commercial sexual exploitation. If you'd be able to share with us sort of your journey, how many years you've been involved in it, and share about the program.
Great. Thank you, Esther. Thank you for inviting me today. It's an honor to be here. So I am one of the program administrators at LA County Department of Children and Family Services. We're the local government agency that provides child welfare services and child protection services for those families that are affected by child abuse and neglect issues. And so I've been working in child welfare for the past 28 years now. In 2014, there was some legislation that significantly changed how we work with youth that have been impacted by trafficking in 2014. The state basically created a program so that child welfare could do more intentional work around supporting, identifying children, youth, and families impacted by commercial sexual exploitation. And so I joined the team back in 2017. And so we've done a lot of work around building programming, support, and services for children, youth, and parents that are victims of trafficking. So, and the way I came around to it is I used to work in the Long Beach area, and I became aware of the work that was being done by Long Beach PD, DCFS, and probation, and joined the trafficking task force out in Long Beach, where they started a pilot program where the Child Welfare Agency, probation, and DCFS would have a joint response whenever law enforcement became aware of a possible victim of commercial sexual exploitation. So, and when I saw the wonderful work that they were doing and just how intense the problem of trafficking is in California, especially Los Angeles, I wanted to be a part of it. So I joined the DREAM program in DCFS. DREAM stands for Dedicated to Restoration, Empowerment, and Mentoring Program. And we are a specialized program that only provides services to youth and families impacted by trafficking. And so we have specialized social workers and supervisors as well as social workers that just focus on providing emergency response services to kids that are victims of trafficking. And so, it's really been a pleasure to work with Zoe International and other partners because we need this multidisciplinary team approach to really do work teaming with our kids. So it's been a great experience.
Why is it important for agencies like Zoe? I know there's a lot of amazing agencies in the county to get involved and to support the work that DCFS does and coming alongside law enforcement. And why is it important for organizations like ours to be involved?
Yeah, well, it's super critical because we have a lot of kids that come to our attention. So every year we have like anywhere from 600 to 900 kids that are reported to our child protection hotline every year. And so it's a lot of youth and families that need help. And DCFS cannot do it alone. We may investigate the reports that come in and do our assessments to determine the safety and the risks associated to human trafficking and our kids being impacted by it. And because of a great amount of needs that we see, there's so many vulnerabilities that are being experienced by our kids that we look to community partners to help build those protective factors to address those vulnerabilities. As you know, Esther, since you and your team work so closely with our kids, their vulnerabilities are often related to homelessness or not feeling loved or a sense of belonging, or there may be violence in the family and in the community, mental health services, some substance use issues that created all these vulnerabilities. And many of our kids have experienced, I would say 88% of the referrals that we receive, they've experienced early childhood abuse. So there are multiple layers of trauma that need to be addressed, and kids need the support from Zoe International and other partners. It's been super critical, and it has been life-saving to have partners such as yourself and your team at Zoe International, because it makes a difference between life and possibly death. Because as you know, working in a huge governmental bureaucracy, things don't happen quickly. We can't get things to our kids, like concrete supports, basic needs. We can't get to that, get those basic supports quickly to them. So we rely on Zoe International for many of those situations where our kids and families need food, clothing, a place to stay. We need emergency housing. So it's critical that we have Zoe International to be our safety net for our children and families, which you all have been wonderful at. Anytime we have an issue, and I know it's usually at past traditional hours at 5 p.m., I call Zoe International because I know that they are there to lend a warm meal to our families, housing and shelter for our families. And that is one of the probably most critical interventions that we need to provide when we first come into contact with children and families and children that are unstable. We need to be able to provide that, because that is often the beginning of developing a trusting relationship with our children and families. When they see that we work with our partners to provide them with that support, they are more likely to work with us so that we can help support them towards safety and stability and well-being. And just the relationships that Zoe International and other partners provide our kids, it's the gift of time and of positive relationships that makes a world of difference. So, I want to just thank you for being there and being our safety net for our kids.
Well, you're such an incredible leader, and your DCFS team, we love working with the social workers on the team, and DCFS does incredible work. You see really the hardest and the and the worst of the worst, what just to the final question, I guess, would be, what would be, I guess, the message of hope for those who are listening, that you, in the years that you've been doing this very difficult work, what's the progress, the change, the because we're all coming together and trying to end this, what can you tell the public that in terms of the good that is coming out of what everybody is doing?
Yes, and I would say the biggest, most important critical intervention that we do, where we have been able to witness what I consider miracles, is having a team support, having the people readily available and diligent in their efforts to be there for kids when they need them. And being consistent, right? And just meeting kids where they are is just so important, because that's when we start seeing the trust build and the kids starting to make some more positive changes in their lives. But they're doing it with the support of people. So we need people to, be foster parents. We need people to come up to the plate and be advocates, mentors. We also need people to be CASA's court-appointed special advocates. And you can look on our website to find out more information around how people can become a mentor and a consistent supporter, because we know, and all the research shows, that what our children need first and foremost is at least one reliable, nurturing adult in their lives that will be consistently there for them. But, if people aren't able to do that, what you provide, through donations and providing the concrete supports and linking families and children to opportunities, like jobs, a lot of getting our kids, youth, and even parents prepared to have a job, to help them become prepared to do an interview, to know how to fill out applications is just so important, because they don't want, what I've learned is that they don't want to be in the situation they're in. Right? There's a lot of misery in being in a situation, but that's because a lot of times they feel that there is no real other options or alternatives. So when people show them, hey, here's an opportunity, and they're real opportunities, that's when they're going to find trust in knowing that, okay, here is someone that can really help me, show me a pathway to a different way of living, a different way of life, and I think that's just probably the most important, is just providing those opportunities, because then they see that there is hope, that there are other pathways to take, and that they'll be supported as they take their journey on a new pathway.
Thank you so much, Adela, for taking time out of your day to join us, and just the incredible work that you and your teams are doing out there. We just love, and it's a privilege to work alongside you.
Thank you, Esther. I want to thank you and the whole team at Zoe International. We are incredibly grateful for you always being there, and doing so much great, diligent work, and just being a constant in the lives of our children and families. Truly grateful.
Thank you, Adela.
Thank you.
And so finally, we have just our wonderful special guest joining us today. She is a youth that we knew back when she was in high school at 16 years old, and now she's a 21-year-old adult, and we've stayed in touch with her, and she is really wanting to give back. She wants to help protect other children and help other families to avoid the dangers of the things that she has experienced. And we've just had the privilege to come alongside her and her family to help her come out of difficult times and just be on the other side of seeing how amazing she's doing now. And so today we have our special guest, Adriana, joining us today. Hi, Adriana.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Thanks for joining us today and taking time out of your busy schedule. We know you're studying for finals and all the different things going on. But maybe we can start by just asking you, when we met you years ago when you were 16 and now you're 21, what were some of the greatest needs at that time that you feel made you vulnerable to predators who wanted to take advantage of you?
during that time, I think my biggest vulnerabilities was wanting to feel wanted or loved. Feelings from especially men, that feeling of being seen or heard. I was going through a lot during that time where I looked for resolution in the wrong type of people, such as, unfortunately, ended up being predators, and you don't see it at first.
Right. And what would be some of the ways that you can educate the public about some of the tactics that these
Mm.
predators and exploiters are using to lure kids out of their homes?
Mm-hmm. A lot of the tactics are online. They'll bribe you. They'll make you feel good at first. Come hang out with me. We'll go shopping. We'll go out to eat. We'll be able to hang out. Drugs was a big thing during that time. Kind of bribe you to get out the house. A lot of it also was online. Girls, recruiters. Girls will meet girls, and especially girls that they know might be a little vulnerable, and try to influence them to come out, come party. You're young, let's have fun. Especially in children, these are adults, and it makes you feel kind of, oh, this is fun, the adrenaline behind it. So definitely online, fake friends that are girls that are looking to recruit.
And during that time, what are some ways that you felt like Zoe was able to step in and support you and your family?
Mm-hmm. Zoe helped so much with me and my family. They've taken and helped not just me, but also, yes, my family. For example, the first night. The advocate that I got assigned, I went to bed. The cops were there. I just came back from running away, and I was in bed before midnight, and she stayed till 3 a.m. to comfort me and my parents, my grandparents. Zoe has just provided so much resources from when I was trying to get onto my feet. They've connected me with career advice. Sorry, my son's in here playing. They've connected me with career advisors to help lead down paths to move in a better situation. They've listened, no matter what. Zoe has been very consistent, and during that time, there was not much consistency in my life. I was going through a bunch of changes, house to house. At one point, I was living in a residential therapy home, trying to get therapy for the trauma I've experienced being trafficked. And every single week, without a doubt, no matter how far I was, Zoe showed up. My advocate would show up, which meant a lot because during that time, I didn't get any connection of the outside world. I was living in a therapy home. It just made me feel very seen. And no matter what, I wasn't judged. They were just kind of always wanting to push to get me to the right direction in life.
What would be your message to parents who want to keep their kids safe and don't want this to happen? What are some things that you can share with parents just to help them protect their kids better?
Monitoring of online. Online is such a big world, and it can be very dangerous. Online, kids are very vulnerable. You can't see everything through a screen, so people can pretend to be someone they're not. So parents on monitoring online, but also just making a safe space at home for children to feel like they can come to you. A lot of girls that I've met, or myself, a lot of it is that comfort of I can't really come to my parents. I'm in too deep, and I don't want to hear. I don't want to get yelled at. I don't want to feel the way I feel. So just providing that safe space for children and monitoring online, monitoring friends. I used to hate this when I was younger, but my parents would want to meet every parent and things like that, where it's, little things like that, where sometimes parents might not think about it, makes a huge difference.
Mhm. And what would be your message to the public listening now in terms of why it's important for them to get involved or support
Mhm.
organizations like Zoe, or just get involved in coming alongside supporting kids and families who are
Mhm.
struggling?
Supporting things like Zoe and stuff, it makes a huge difference. Programs like Zoe has helped. They've been there from the jump. From the first night when I first got, picked up and back home safely. That little $10 a month donation goes so far. Little things like being able to I know, like, taking, like, Zoe would help me when I met like a hairdresser, little things where those donations help to provide those spaces. Or I had a job interview and take that. I know my advocate took me to get some clothes to be able to do my job interview and help me through the stages of transitioning from adult to children. So those little things, they go such a long way. And yeah.
Thank you. And then finally, what are some accomplishments that you're proud of today?
One, motherhood. I know you can probably hear in the background. I have a 5-month-old son. So just seeing from me being a child and never thinking anything like that to now being able to be a mom and raise my son in the right ways. But also sobriety. I'm 2 years sober, so that's been a huge accomplishment to me. Is beginning my life night and day from where I was to what I am now and the goals I have now.
And I know in the time that we've known you, you've graduated from high school, you're in school right now, you were working, and your hope is to become a teacher one day.
Yeah.
We just celebrate you, Adrienne, the hard work that you've done
Thank you.
to come to where you've at. And it's just such a privilege to know you and just continue to be a part of your life. Thank you, Adrienne.
Yeah, I'd definitely not be where I was without Zoe. So thank you.
Thanks for joining us today.
Of course.
So thank you all for joining. If you've been moved by the stories and the impact that you've heard today, we invite you to become part of this movement. For just $10 a month, you can help us reach our goal of 10,000 Freedom Partners in 2025. And together we can make an eternal difference. Your $10 a month supports preventing child trafficking through education, awareness, and outreach in all of the countries we serve in. We're in Thailand, in Mexico, in Japan, Australia, the West Coast in LA County, and then the East Coast in Pennsylvania. And your support helps us with rescuing victims. We come alongside law enforcement to support their operations as victim advocates, to support identifying victims and helping them get the help that they need to come out of that life, and restoring survivors with safe homes, counseling, life-changing support programs. Next year, each month, our team will be sharing with you more ways that you can personally get involved in helping to end child trafficking. If you visit endchildtrafficking.org, you can join the fight, or click in the link in the comments to sign up right now. And together, we're bringing light to the darkness and hope to children in need. So thank you for spending your Giving Tuesday with us and for your passion for this mission. Every voice, every dollar, and every prayer makes a difference. Let's continue to stand in faith, trusting God's guidance to end child trafficking once and for all. And together, we're unstoppable. Thank you so much.